So good afternoon, hope you've had a great day. A few weeks ago, my eldest daughter, her name's Gabrielle, she passed a driving test. And great news it was. At least it was great news for a little while, until of course I then got the question which you know is going to come next. So Dad, when can I have a car? I said to her, we'll talk about it sometime. We'll get to there. And she said, yeah, but Dad, if we don't get one now, I might forget how to drive. And I said, Gabby, you won't forget how to drive. It's like riding a bike. You'll be fine. Yeah, but I'm really worried I'm going to lose the ability to drive. We'll be okay. Anyway, next day, she nagged me. The next day, and she's good at that. Gabby's good at nagging. And so I thought, you know what, we'll sit down and we'll do some research about cars. And we looked at the different types to get, and should we get for a brand new one or a second-hand one? And we looked at the Citroen C1, a Hyundai i10. And we found one that was a 2-year-old Hyundai i10, which was the exact colour she wanted. It was a light blue car. It looked good in the photographs, and even better, it was a dealership just 5 miles away from the house. So I arranged a test drive. So off we went and had our test drive, and when we had the test drive, there was a dealer sat in the back of the car. And as we set off, the words that were coming out of Gabby's mouth were all the wrong things that I knew were going to cost me £1,000. I'll tell you what they were in a short while. But first, let me tell you about this lady. Who's met Jane Aylwin? Some of you have. Fantastic. Jane is an extraordinary bookkeeper. She's actually next door right now. Jane, I first met Jane just over 2 years ago. It was actually in March 2015. She's a bookkeeper, and she asked if she could join my mentoring group. I mentor accountants and now bookkeepers. Back then I didn't work with bookkeepers. She wrote a great long piece giving me reasons why I should help her. And she wanted me to help her because she started her bookkeeping practice back in, I think it was 2008, from a kitchen table. And like many of us, she grew it quite very quickly. And at first it made us some money. But as she grew the business, she started to take on employees. And I think she now has a team of 5 or 6 employees. And what she found was, as she started taking on more people and growing, her fixed costs went up. The amount of time she spent working and managing people and doing the client work went up. The profits did that. And so in March 2015, she was struggling. So I said, yep, I'll help you. Now, for the next 5 or 6 months, she came to the sessions and she took lots of notes, listened, took notes, and didn't do anything, by her own admission. And then in November 2015, it was a Monday in the evening, so it was dark, it was cold out, and she was driving along to a client, and as she was driving, she suddenly thought, you know what, I'm just fed up. I'm fed up with having to drive to clients at crazy times in the day, going to see clients that just don't appreciate what I do, that always complain about the price. And she thought, I'm just working too hard for too little money. Can anyone relate to that? Anybody else working too hard for too little money? So in the car, she made a decision. She decided that she would follow the process I'd been teaching her to the letter. 2 hours later, she came out of that meeting with a big smile on her face. She'd got a brand new engagement with the client. Same service as last year, doing the same stuff, double the price. She was so happy with that, she thought, you know what, this seems to work. She had 3 more client meetings in her diary for that week. The second client meeting followed the same process. Came away, same engagement, double the fee. Third one, same process, double the fee. Fourth one, same process, client chose to buy some more stuff, she increased the price by over 4 times. She said to me, I was fortunate to interview her last year, and if you want to see it, the interview is on my YouTube channel, but actually even better, go and talk to her after this session. She said to me that the impact of repricing 4 clients, in that 1 week alone, and this is an established business with employees, in that 1 week she increased her total fees, annual fees, by 12%. Now, to put that into some sort of context, when I work with accountants, very few accounting firms grow by 12% a year. This was in 1 week. Now, what she's gone on to do since then has been staggering. Some of the things, the results she's getting, the prices she's getting. She said to me yesterday morning when she came here, she just signed up a client for £800 a month, which I know for many of you is probably a big client. So how did she do that? I'll tell you how she did it in a short while. For those of you that don't know me, by the way, my name is Mark Wickersham, and I'm the author of a number of books on pricing. My first book, Effective Pricing for Accountants, hit the #1 spot on Amazon. I'm a chartered accountant. I started back in this profession in 1988, so yeah, I'm that old. I really am. And I went through a usual training contract with a large multi-partner firm in Sheffield, and after 3 years I qualified as a chartered accountant. And then in 1996, middle of 96, May, I decided to set up my own accounting firm. And just like many others, just like Jane, I started with no clients, working from a room in my house, the bedroom, and I started to build this practice. To my surprise, over the next couple of years, I grew very fast. 2 and a bit years later, by the middle of 1998, I had over 200 clients. I had over 200,000 in fees. I'd gone from my house in a bedroom to an office, outgrew that to a bigger office. I'd got a team of people, which at its peak was a team of 13. And from the outside looking into my practice, you would have said I was a very successful accountant. I certainly looked successful. The reality was a bit different. Those first 2.5 years were so hard. I made every mistake you could possibly imagine. I was working stupid hours. I wasn't making any money at all. I was continually going back to the bank manager with a begging bowl saying, please sir, can I have a bit more money? Can I have a bigger overdraft? Can I have another loan? My costs were spiraling out of control. And I got to a crisis point in 1998, 2.5 years down the line. Something had to change. And I realized of all the mistakes I was making, the single biggest mistake I made was I didn't know how to price. I'd assumed, I'd grown up in the profession thinking you had to keep timesheets, you had to bill by the hour. That's what I did. And I wasn't making money. I was too cheap. I was fortunate to then meet Ron Baker in '99, and he taught me and introduced me to the idea of value pricing. And his message resonated so well that I realized I could create systems. The systems worked so well, my practice turned around in 12 months to the extent where I could then sell it to my team. The managers bought it, a management buyout. And I've been teaching accountants my system since the year 2000. So 17 years now, I've been teaching accountants, bookkeepers in the UK, the US and Canada. And many of those firms are increasing their prices, not by 5-10%, but in some cases double, treble, 4 times. I now mentor accountants every single month and teach them the process. So I found over the years that if I go back to the early days, most accountants back in 15 years ago, nearly all accountants were pricing based on time and didn't understand or hadn't even heard of value pricing. But there has been a big shift over the last few years. In fact, in the last 5 years, I would guess now that almost every accountant and bookkeeper that I meet knows that we must value price. There are only 2 ways to price, by the way, just 2 ways. Cost plus pricing and value pricing. Cost plus is where you price based on your costs and add on a margin. Value is when we price based on the value to the customer. The problem with cost-based pricing is it ignores the customer. It ignores the demand side of the equation. 100 years ago, the Austrian School of Economists demonstrated that cost plus pricing is stupid. And yet that's what we do. Time-based billing is a form of cost plus pricing. So we must change from the old-fashioned way to value pricing. Unfortunately, very few firms have made the change. One of the reasons for that is because in the past there's not been enough pain. It's not affecting our profit. Yes, we're working too hard for too little money, but it's not that painful just yet. But what will change very soon is you will have to. And the reason for that is because we're going through a big change at the moment. If I think about my life in the profession, back in the late 80s, early 90s, we had big changes to audit thresholds, which had a big impact. In the mid to late 90s, we brought in self-assessment. That was a big impact. We found this century, we've had social media has completely changed the way that we market accounting firms. We then saw auto-enrollment was a big change. However, all of those changes are tiny compared to the current one, which is this adoption of cloud technology. I don't know if you saw the research in 2015 done by Oxford University in conjunction with Deloitte. They predicted that in a very short space of time, 96% of what accountants and bookkeepers do will soon be automated. Now that's scary. And some people are suggesting that soon we will become redundant. I don't believe that. I think we have an exciting opportunity. But what it does mean, with absolute certainty, is the definition of an accountant, the definition of a bookkeeper will change. Because it is being automated. We're at the early stages. You're seeing that through great tools like QBO. What you're seeing is bank feeds is automatically doing the bank transactions. We don't have to code them and post them anymore. Using great tools like Receipt Bank, we're using our smartphones to scan our invoices and it automatically posts them to the right place. There's a huge investment going into machine learning. What that means is that computers are getting smarter. You perhaps talk to tax filer. I don't know if you have or not, but once you've got your trial balance done in QuickBooks, it then passes the information to tax filer, and what tax filer does, it does the tax calculations, the corporation tax return. Everything is being automated. And this means we have to change. We cannot price based on the hour anymore, because if you do, you will soon be giving everything away for free. Let me explain why. If I go back to 1988, and I started as a junior in the accounting profession in a multi-partner firm in Sheffield. That firm in 1988 didn't have any computers. They had a word processing department. And my job as a junior, I had some important jobs in that first year. One of those was that I would get given a copy of last year's accounts. I would take those to the photocopying room and photocopy them. I would then use some white stuff you might remember called Tipex. And my job was to Tipex out the numbers. Once that had dried, I then was given by the manager the manual trial balance. And my job was to take the numbers on the final two columns of the trial balance and write them onto the Tipexed out counts from last year. Can anyone remember this? Is anyone as old as me that can remember this process? Does it make sense? The young ones in the room are thinking, what the heck, what was that all about? That's what we did. They then went to the word processing department. When they came back, we had a really important job called calling over. Do you remember the calling over? Yeah, I would get together with another person on the training contract. We'd go into a room and one of us would read over the numbers in the word processed accounts and the other one would have the manual set to check they'd been word processed correctly. That's what we did before computers came along. Now, in that particular firm, it was a big firm, big multi-partner firm, they had a lot of corporate clients. And every single corporate client's got two bills every year. One bill was for the annual accounts. The second one was for the abbreviated accounts. And back in 1988, in that firm, most clients got a bill of £400 for abbreviated accounts. Now let's fast forward to today. How do you do abbreviated accounts? I think it goes something like this. In your accounts preparation software, I think there's a button called Abbreviated Accounts, and I believe it goes something like this. And I think it's about 0.6 seconds, and there are the abbreviated. Is that about right? Okay, here's the question. Who in this room raised a separate invoice for abbreviated accounts? Well, one person does, the first person in 2 days. Which is interesting. Now, the really interesting thing, though, is back in 1988, firms would pay £400 for abbreviated accounts extra. Now, we give it away for free. Here's the question, the interesting issue. To what extent, between 1988 and today, has the value to the customer changed? It's not changed. This is a valuable service. Abbreviated accounts means that they can keep their private information, the profit and loss details, off the public record. They value it. So why are we giving it for free? Because we're billing based on time, not on value. If you bill based on value, you can charge an extra £400, in fact more because of inflation, for every corporate client you've got. Why are we doing it for free? Now, That's with abbreviated accounts. There are many other things we do for free because it now takes no time. If we just project forward, there will come a point in time where bookkeepers will be doing the bookkeeping for free. It will happen. Now, I believe that we have to do more for our clients now that we're in a digital age. The definition of an accountant and the bookkeeper will change. Once the bookkeeping, the data entry is automated, once the compliance work is automated, at the moment, I'm guessing your core income. If you're a bookkeeper, most of your income comes from bookkeeping. If you're an accountant, most of your income, your fees, is annual financial accounts. Yeah? I guess that in some time, like 3 or 4 years from now, you'll have a different service that's your main source of income. Now, at the moment in the big 4 firms, their fastest growing work is advisory services. So at some point, you'll be doing consulting work. But actually, that's scary. What we will be doing, though, is the next stage for compliance work. What will become your core work in 3 or 4 years' time is management reporting. Because the data entry is done. You'll be taking those monthly or quarterly information and you'll be interpreting the numbers, advising clients. That's why I think this is exciting. It frees us up to do what's really, really valuable. But here's the problem. Already, technology makes that so easy. If you've ever looked at the amazing features in QBO for doing custom reports, you can do beautiful, customized reports. You can go a step further by plugging in Spotlight Reporting or Fathom or Crunchboards. You can create amazing management information with graphs, charts, with color at the press of a button. And yet I believe that management reporting, interpreting the numbers, advising clients is one of the most valuable things that we can do. And unfortunately, it's sad to say there are some accountants and bookkeepers, and there will be many more who do that for free, just like abbreviated accounts, because we have a button. If we carry on pricing based on time, we will become extinct. We have to price based on value. So how do you do it? The bad news is it's crazy hard. It's difficult. Value pricing is insanely difficult for 3 reasons. Number 1, value is subjective. You cannot touch it, you can't feel it, you can't measure it, you can't quantify it. How do you establish how much is the value to one of your clients of you doing the annual accounts? It's hard. It's even harder still because the second thing is every single person values things differently. No 2 people place the same value on something. And that means, as my friend Ron Baker says, is we have to value the customer, not the service. Every client gets a unique price. And the third thing which makes it uniquely difficult for our profession is we're not selling phones or widgets or a simple service. We're selling a very complex service. Whether it's bookkeeping, whether it's annual accounts, whether it's tax returns, the scope of the work changes for every different client. The price you would want to charge will depend on how big are they? What type of client? Are they a limited company, a sole trader? Are they in the construction industry? If they're a lawyer, there's more work because of solicitor's accounts rules. Every client is different. They all have different scope of work. They have different needs, wants. How do you value price that? That's why most firms go back to the timesheet, because it's easy. But it's a crazy way of pricing. We have to value price. We have to figure out a system for doing that. And what we also need to do is put our prices up. Because I can guarantee every single one of you is too cheap. You're all working too many hours for too little money. The root cause is price. You're too cheap. And I know that because every accountant and bookkeeper I've spoken to for the last 17 years is too cheap. I haven't yet come across an expensive accountant. We're too cheap. And we do that because we price the wrong way. Now, I've seen over the years, one of the things I've seen is a huge shift towards fixed pricing. Have you heard of fixed pricing? Here's a big myth. Fixed pricing is not value pricing. It's not value pricing. Let's imagine you do tax returns and you decide you want to give a fixed price. It's £500 for doing a tax return. How can that be value pricing? Because every customer values things differently. It can't be value pricing. Also, if you have a single fixed price for anything, it's wrong. Your price of £500 for tax returns, it's the wrong price. And the reason for that is when you talk to a client or a prospective client about tax returns, as you talk about what you do, they will have a number in their mind as to what they think it's worth and they would pay. The probability of that number being exactly £500 is so small, it's improbable. They will have a number in their mind. And that number will either be a bigger number or a smaller number. If it's a smaller number and you quote £500, you're too expensive, they don't buy, you lose out. If on the other hand they're thinking this must be worth £800 and you quote £500, great, you make a sale, you've left money on the table. Fixed pricing is not value pricing. So we have to shift, we have to find a better way. We have to put our prices up. There is one big problem with that. What about our price-sensitive clients? We've got those, haven't we? Who's got the price-sensitive clients? Yeah? You haven't. You haven't. None of you have a price-sensitive client. None of you have a price-sensitive client. And the reason for that is this. There's been research about, there's different types of price buyers. I'll share with you the three main types. Research shows that somewhere between 14 and 20% of people in the population are price sensitive. That's all. They're the sort of people that go and buy from Poundland. They're the sort of people that cut out the vouchers to get 3p off butter. Yes, they're price sensitive. They're not your clients. You do not have those in your client base. Entrepreneurs, high net worth individuals, business owners are not price sensitive. Think about your clients. Have a show of hands. Think about your clients. Do you have clients who own Apple products? Who's got clients with an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac computer? By definition, they cannot be price sensitive because there are cheaper phones, cheaper tablets, cheaper computers. If you have any clients, who's got clients that buy their coffee from Starbucks or Costa Coffee? Those people are not price sensitive because there are cheaper ways of getting your coffee fix. I promise you, your clients are not in that 16 to 20%. They are not price sensitive. They're value sensitive. You're all value sensitive, I can almost guarantee. We want value for money. We want the biggest profit on the deal. Yes, price is important, but what we get in return is even more important. That's why we buy iPhones. That's why we buy Starbucks coffee, because we want value. The problem you have is that at some point in the past, and perhaps even frequently, you've presented a price to a client or prospect and they've said to you, that's a bit expensive. Who's had that? Yeah, we had that. That's a bit expensive. And what we do is we assume that they are price sensitive. No. When everybody says to you, you're too expensive, it's not because you're too expensive. It's a natural reaction when we don't understand the value. When your clients don't understand what's in it for them, they will assume it's too expensive. That doesn't mean they're a price-sensitive person. Okay? Which means that they are value-sensitive, which means that in our heads we've got to change things. We've got to focus on value, not price. It's about focusing on value. The right clients want more from you. Now there are three main types of buyer in society. There is the price buyer. They are the price-sensitive people. You will meet those in society occasionally. They're not your clients. Then you've got the value buyers, and there's actually two types. There's the value buyer and the relationship buyer, which is a higher level still. They want to work with a client, an accountant at a close level. There's one more type, the poker-faced buyer, and they're the ones that bugger it up for you. Because you have to understand that in the pricing game, the customer has a job. The customer's job is always to get the best price. When you buy, you want the best price, don't you? It doesn't make you price sensitive, but as a customer, our job is to get the best price. Your job is to build the value and the perception of value. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, whenever I buy cars, I don't need one that's made and bought brand new. I usually buy ones that are 6 months old, ex-demo, because they have everything and you save a fortune. A few years ago, I bought a Jaguar XKR. I'd been wanting one for years. And I went through all the Jaguar brochures and I saw the white one. I thought, I want the white one. The only problem is the white one looks a bit plain unless you have the Sport Pack, which is the most expensive Jaguar XKR you can get. The Sport Pack has black wheels, which look beautiful with the white car. They have, behind the black wheels, a dark red metallic set of brakes. They have a transfer on the side that says XKR. The whole thing looks beautiful. You have to have the Sport Pack, which removes the speed limiter, so it's 174 miles an hour or something crazy. That's what I wanted. So I went and searched on the internet for Jaguar dealers, and I was looking to see where I could find the exact one I wanted, and there were two in the country. One was in Nottingham, and one was over in Hull. And it turned out the one in Hull was was a branch of my local dealer in Sheffield, who I had for 9 years with my previous Jag. So I got the email addresses of the respective salespeople. And I emailed the person in Nottingham and I said, I want that car you've got on your forecourt. What deal can you do? And he emailed back and he offered me, I think it was £1,000 off the price. I went to my local dealer and I said, I see that you've got a car in Hull. That's exactly what I want. Can you bring that to Sheffield? And I've just had a quote from someone in Nottingham saying I'll knock £1,000 off the list price. What can you do? And they came back and said, we can knock off 2,000. Okay. I went to this one. I went back to Nottingham. I said, I've just had this email. Can you beat that? They did. We went backwards and forwards with emails all week. And actually, I stopped the process because I actually started feeling really, really guilty. I felt really bad. And I also, because I was quite loyal, I really wanted to give the business to my local Jaguar dealer. So I eventually bailed out and stopped after I'd saved £10,000 off the price. I wasn't price sensitive. I would have paid the full price. I was a customer playing the price game. That's what your clients are doing to you. They know that they can play you off against your competitors. And if you let them do that, you will always crumble on price. Don't let your clients play the price game. They are value buyers ultimately. They might seem like price sensitive. They're not. They are value buyers, trust me. Okay, so let me share with you, I want to share a big mistake and then a couple of key principles. So, big mistake in the profession. When you value price, you must have a face-to-face conversation or a meeting online with a webcam, because there's no way you can value price without a conversation. You must talk to the client. So here's a big mistake I see firms making, increasingly now. This is a worrying trend. Please, please do not put your prices on a website. That's crazy. If you do, take them off. Don't have price on a website. All you'll do is win the price shopper, the people who are looking for the cheapest accountant. Please don't put prices on a brochure and send that out. And here's a really big mistake that I used to make all the time when I was growing my accounting firm in the early years. I would go and see a prospective client and I'd really impress them about the things that I would do. And I came from tax, so I would do lots of tax planning and stuff. They were really impressed. And then they'd ask the question that we all hate. So what will that cost, Mark? And I would panic and think, I don't know. Tell you what, let me think about it and I'll do a proposal. And I'll send it through the post. Anyone remember the post? If you're old like me, we had the post in the 1990s. You probably don't do it by email now. That's a crazy thing to do. Let me explain why. Think about when you last received a quote. Perhaps you were shopping around for a landscape gardener or a painter and decorator and you ask a few to send through a quote. Remember when that quote came through to you. What was the first thing you looked for in the quote? The price. We do. We want to look what the price is. And your clients are no different. So even if you have a 30-page fancy brochure with all sorts of wonderful words in there, when they get that, they go flicking through for the price. That's what they want to see first. And what happens is when they see that number, they make an instant judgment. Usually, ooh, that's a bit more than I was expecting. And there's nothing you can do about it because you're not there. You've now lost control of the process. So you're keeping your fingers crossed they might ring you back at some point. But what really happens, and you know this, that if you don't ring them back, they go to their existing accountant and say, I've just had this. Can you beat it? And you know what the existing accountant will do because they always do. Yes, we can knock you £1,000 off. Because we do that. We're crazy. Just like the motor dealers. Please do not do that. You must discuss price in the meeting with the client. I'll show you how you do it in a short while. Okay, so 2 key principles for you. Number 1, I said earlier, one of the things that's difficult about value pricing is everybody values things differently. So the first thing that you can do to move towards value pricing is actually very simple, but it's also incredibly powerful. For every service you offer, whether it's tax returns, payroll, bookkeeping, accounts, always create 3 packages, 3 options every single time. It's called the magic of 3. What happens is most people, when faced with 3 choices, go for the middle one because the other 2 at the extremes feel risky. It feels safer to go for the middle one. That's why if you go to Starbucks, they give you 3 choices of a latte. That's why when you buy a Mac computer off Apple's website, they give you 3 choices. This isn't by chance, it's because it works. So when last year you gave your client a price for doing annual accounts, one thing, this year you now give them 3 choices. You create some extra value, some extra bundles. What you will find And you might, if you're worried about putting your prices up, make your entry level similar to last year. And then make your middle level 20% higher, your top level 30 or 40% higher. What you will find is many of your clients, many more than you expect, will choose to pay you more money because they will see value in your bigger bundle of stuff. I've had firms, I've been teaching this for 17 years, I've had firms of accountants say to me, just that one thing, giving 3 choices, has increased my average price by 20%. And because that doesn't affect your cost, for a typical accounting firm, that's 40 to 50% increase in bottom line profits. That can be a big number. So that's the first key principle I wanted to share with you. Give 3 choices. Second idea I want to share with you, a concept, and it's the concept of optimal pricing. What that means is that you want to get the highest price, the maximum price any particular customer is able and willing to spend. Firstly, because you owe it to yourself, because in your case, the thing about our industry is you have a scarce resource, it's your time. If, for example, you spend Friday working with a client, doing their accounts all day, after Friday, you can't resell that time to somebody else, it's gone forever. So you owe it to yourself to figure out a way to maximize the return on your scarce resource, your time. So we have to find a way of getting the maximum price any particular customer is able and willing to spend. The question is, how do we do that? And the answer is, you cannot ask them. So imagine we have a potential client called Mary comes in and she's looking to change accountants. You can't say, Mary, just out of interest, what's the maximum price you're willing to pay? Because she won't tell you. And if she does give you a number, she's lying. Okay? We can't ask. So we need a process. Let's imagine Mary's currently paying £1,000. And perhaps you don't know that because she won't show you the accounts. But imagine she's paying £1,000. It might be she's willing to pay you £1,500 because she's looking to change accountants. She's not happy and she'd pay more. But again, she won't tell us that. So how do we figure out? Well, what you want to do, and here's the key principle. You want to, and I know this is going to sound strange because historically what you would do, the old way of pricing is you probably try to come up with a price that's competitive because we hate that reaction when they say that's a bit expensive. Yeah? We don't like that. So we try to be competitive. And very often we undercut the other accountants we know, which is stupid because they're too cheap. So why undercut cheap people? Don't copy your competition. They have no idea what they're doing. So what we need to do is come up with a price that's high. And so what you do, you want to make sure that when you quote the price, you want them to say that's too expensive. Because here's a simple fact. When you quote a price, if your client says yes straight away, you've gone in too cheap. If your client says yes to your first price, you've left money on the table. So please do not celebrate when someone says yes too quickly. So we price too high. The problem is, how do we do that? Because if you said to Mary, it's going to cost you £5,000, and she says, £5,000? That's way more than I've ever paid for account. I'm not paying that. Well, we can't make it up on the spot. You can't say, oh, Mary, I might have been a bit aggressive there. I'll tell you what, we could perhaps do it for £1,500. Your credibility is gone. You are not second-hand car dealers, okay? We're professionals. We have to have a transparent, credible approach to pricing. This is how we do it. Whenever you have a price conversation, whether it's to try and win a brand new client or it's an existing client who wants to buy something else, your payroll service, you're setting people up on QBO, that's a sales meeting. Whether you like it or not, you're in a sales meeting. And if we really simplify things, there's 3 stages that we go through. Stage 1 is called the fact find. Stage 1 is you want to ask questions to find out about the client, about their business, to show an interest, to find out what's their pain points, what keeps them awake at night, what do they want? What do they want from an accountant? What are their goals in life? What do they want from their business? And if you talk to Jane next door, she sometimes spends over an hour on that conversation because businesses actually they want to talk about their business. And that's great. The more they tell you, the more you learn. So number 1, the fact find. Only when you've learned that information do you then start to talk about what you can do. Stage 2 is you build the value. And you want a process for that. I would always recommend you have a professional looking brochure. No prices in it, by the way. The brochure gives you a system, a structure for your meeting. because you want to do things in a certain order. When you're talking about what you can do, you start off by describing the pain you're taking away. Because as human beings, it's been shown that we are more motivated by the avoidance of pain than we are by the attainment of gain. So you always describe the pain in graphic detail, using numbers, quantifying things, about the penalties they'll get if they get it wrong. We then talk about the benefits, the big picture benefits of how we solve that problem for them. Then what we do is make sure that we describe our 3 choices. So this might be annual financial statements. What would they get in the 3 options? And then what we do is everything on the left-hand side is what marketers call a feature. The trouble is nobody buys features, they buy benefits. You need to make sure for everything that you do, you explain to the client why you do it and how that benefits them. This is how Jane is able to double the price for doing the same thing, because when we are better at using the right language and techniques to properly communicate value, when the client understands it, they will pay you a higher price. Not everyone, you don't need everyone to pay you double, but if 10% of your clients pay you double, that makes a big difference to your results. So that's the second stage in the process. We have to build up the value, build in the right way. Stage 3 is we then come up with the price. That's the hard bit. How do we come up with the price in the meeting there and then? We haven't done the work yet. We have no idea how long it'll take. That's irrelevant. How do we come up with the price? Well, what we want to do is price high and come down, but we need a system for doing that. Now, I think that in our profession, because of the complexity of what we do, bookkeeping, payroll, accounts, tax, we need a computerized system for doing this. Just like the airline industry uses for making millions out of the way that they allocate seats and use resources. So that's what cloud pricing does, which you can find out about next door. This is what you do. Once you've built up the value, once the client wants to buy, once Mary says, yes, I want to buy from you, we ask her a series of questions. You open up your iPad or your laptop and you say, so Mary, tell me, what are your annual sales? Remind me, what's your income for the year, your sales? And the bigger she is, so I've got in up to 500,000, as you know, you would have a bigger price for a 1 million turnover company than if it's 100,000. Because the bigger they are, the more work from your point of view and the more value they'll place on you sorting it out. So the size of their business should make an impact on the price. So you ask the question, and behind the scenes, you build up a price. By the way, all these questions you can change. These are just examples of the sorts of things that you would ask. You might ask things like, well, what sector are you in? So if she said she's a lawyer, you'd want to have a higher price, because they're lawyers, right? We want to charge lawyers more. Yeah, you agree? Well, we have to, because they have something called solicitors' accounts rules, so we need to factor that in. If they're the construction industry, we would charge more because they have that horrible CIS mess to deal with. So you ask what type of business they're in. What type of entity are they? Are they a sole trader, a charity? Are they a limited company? That could impact on the price. Are they registered for VAT? If they are, you've got to do a VAT control account, VAT reconciliation. You would ask them about their accounting system. So Mary, what system have you got? I know I said to you earlier, Mary, about moving to QuickBooks Online, and you said that's not right for you now. So you're on a desktop system, aren't you? Yeah, I want to keep with my desktop system. Okay, fine, you do it on desktop. And you keep asking questions about her circumstances and things she wants. Once you've asked the questions, the software creates the prices. You then hit a button and it reveals the price. It actually reveals us the price of the 3 options, and you can then remind her what she gets in the 3 options. And as you can see, let's imagine that Mary wanted the middle option. Most clients do. The price here is 12 payments of $297. There's a reason for those numbers, which I won't go into now. It's about price psychology. But 12 payments of $297, you can do the math. That's about $3,500. Now, Mary's currently paying £1,000. She might be willing to pay $1,500. You don't know that. You've gone in at $3,500. That's too high. That's great. Mary will probably say that's too expensive. That's great. That's exactly what you want. And this is partly because one of the most powerful things in price psychology is what's called anchoring. In other words, at the start of the meeting, what she's currently paying, the £1,000 to the existing accountant, is creating a reference price in her mind. She's going to be judging your price largely on the £1,000 she pays. And that creates a big problem for you. What we have to do is we have to use techniques to change the point of reference, the reference price. Now, there's many ways of doing this in the way that we build up the value through through the brochure, we can use anchoring. And one of the specific ways is when we price high, so 3.5 grand, you have now changed the reference price in her mind. Now what you say after this is going to be compared against 3.5 grand, not 1,000. So what you do, you could of course offer a cheaper option. You could even have hidden up your sleeve a cut down, a cut down version if you want to. I wouldn't offer that at this stage because she probably wants the full. So actually what you do first, before you go to a cheaper option, you go back to the previous screen and you revisit the questions. One of the things you want to do is you want to ask questions about things that she wants. So you might have said to Mary, when we do your accounts, who do you want your main point of contact to be? Do you want it to be me, the senior partner, or my assistant Fred? I'm sure you find everybody wants to work with you, don't they? Which causes you a problem because you're then too busy. Well, that's fine. If they want to work with you, let your clients work with you. That means they value working with you, so guess what that means. If they value working with you, you charge a premium. Okay? So the client will always say they want to work with you. But when the price is too high, you go back and say, Mary, I just want to revisit some of these things because it may be some of these things you said yes to aren't so important. So Mary, you said you want to work with me, and that's fine. But actually, Fred's really good, and actually Fred specialises in the manufacturing industry, and I know most of our clients work with Fred. And it's a slightly lower price if you work with Fred. So do you really want to work with me? Is that really important to you, Mary, or not? And if Mary thinks, well, actually that's not that important, then she can choose a different option. And if she does that, now it's 217. And now that 217 she's comparing to 297 because that's the reference price. Okay? Now she might at this point say yes. Fantastic. The 297 tells you you've gone above her maximum price, okay? If she says yes, you know that the maximum price is somewhere between 217 and 297. That helps you for next year, okay? She'll probably say no at this point, though, because that's still way above what her budget is and what she's paying. No problem. We go back and we go back and revisit each of the questions one at a time. So going back to the accounting system, you might have said to Mary at the outset of the conversation, Mary, I really recommend you move to QBO for all these benefits. And at this point you say, Mary, when I talked about the benefits of using QBO, one of the things I didn't say to you was that as well as all those benefits you'll get from moving to the cloud to using QBO, it also actually makes our life easier. And because our life's easier, we can give you a better price. So Mary, would you like to know what it will cost for your annual accounts if we were to move you on to QBO? What do you think she'll say to that? She wants to know. She's curious. She wants to know. And of course you'd say as well, and we do have a service and we'll give you a fixed price for moving you on to QBO. So don't worry about that. We can sort that out for you and there's a separate price for that. Change that. Oh look, it's 12 lots of 157. Can you say we should start with 297? Down to 217, it's now 157. Now that's getting close to a ballpark of 1,500 quid in her head. She will probably say yes at that point in time. If she doesn't, no problem. You just go backwards and forwards asking those questions. Now eventually you'll run out of questions, you'll have changed them all. If she keeps coming down, and some clients will, it depends how much they value things. For some they'll say yes second time around, third time around, sometimes you go a bit further. If you've exhausted all of those components, there's one more thing you can do. You could offer a discount. I don't recommend you ever discount, by the way. Please do not discount. Maintain the integrity of your prices. But what you can do is you can use what I call behavior rewards. That means you swap something. You give a discount in return for the client doing something that makes your life easier. So there's a hidden button and you can create whatever you want. Here's an example. You might say to Mary, she might say, I'd like to, but I just can't quite afford 157. Well, Mary, we'll give you a 15% discount if you pay us in full now in advance, and that will make it just 137 per month. And you can be as creative as you want. When she eventually says yes, and you will find with this process, clients will say yes at a much higher price than they've ever paid you before. Sometimes, in Jane's case, between 2 and 4 times. Not every client, but enough. You then do the upsell. You offer other things. Most of us neglect that. You must have a system, because what happens is once the client says yes, they're in what's called buying mode, and now they decide to work with you, now they will probably buy other things if they're appropriately done. Apple do this brilliant. If you've ever bought an iMac, their upsell process is amazing. If you've ever bought a car in car dealerships, they are good as well. You buy the car, and then having bought the car, they try and sell you the warranties. Yeah? We need to learn the same approach. We need a system to offer the upsell. Right, I've got just a couple more quick points. Some people say to me, can I brand this with my colours and things? Absolutely you can. And for anybody who's forward thinking, who wants to help their clients with pricing, which I think is a huge opportunity, you can create pricing models for clients. This is a bike shop, by the way, pricing their bicycle repair business, and you can earn money being a consultant and setting up pricing models. Anyway, quick thing before we finish. There's one of these on your chair. I've got 3 gifts for you. The first one is I'll send you a digital copy of my eBook, How to Price Accountancy Services for Maximum Profit. Second thing, if you want to play with that software, I'll give you a 30-day free trial. And the third thing is in 2 weeks' time, I am running an online session I'd like to invite you to. It's a 90-minute online session where I'll build on what we've talked about, and I'll talk very specifically at how you value price, moving people onto a cloud accounting system. Now, over the last 18 months, I've been doing research amongst thousands of bookkeepers and accountants, and what I've found is almost 40% of accountants and bookkeepers, when they move a client onto a cloud accounting system, nearly 40% do this for free, which is crazy because that's valuable. We do it for free. We do too much for free. We do it for free. Most people do. Of the rest, they charge a tiny amount. I will teach you in 2 weeks the process, the words you use, how you build your packages, how you price moving people onto a system like QBO. I've been teaching this for 18 months. All the firms that follow the system are getting an average price of £1,000 per client. Now, you know already from today that sometime soon we've got Making Tax Digital. We're not sure when, but sometime all of your clients will be on the cloud. I don't know how many are now, but at some point, all the clients that aren't on the cloud will be going onto the cloud. So my question for you is, do you want to do that for all those clients for free, or would you like to earn £1,000 extra for every single client? I think the sensible answer is to get £1,000 on average. This is a huge opportunity for you. I will teach you in 2 weeks' time exactly how to do that. So simply just tick the boxes, put in your information, drop it off in the stand next door, and then you'll get an email from me telling you the date of that 90-minute session and the other free things that you'll get. If you've got any questions for me, give me about 60 seconds, and I'm going to then go next door and answer your questions on the stand. And if we've got time, we could do a quick demonstration before we pack up. Thank you so much.